Software is getting up to 60 to 80% cheaper to build. That changes the math on buying versus building. And here's how. Last September, Chamath Palihapitiya made a claim. One company, he said, is replacing a $15 million per year SaaS vendor. Not switching to a competitor, but replacing it with what he calls software factory. Now look what else is happening. SaaS companies, valuation down from 20 times revenue to 3.5. Indian IT services firms, for the first time in decade, revenue is growing faster than the headcount. And the big four, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, Accenture, they all are racing to deploy software factory services to their enterprise clients. Because when production gets industrialized, economics shift. And over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you where that value is moving. Now, here is what is happening. A category is forming, one that industrializes software production the same way the factories industrialized manufacturing. And Chamath, he has been building this publicly over a year now. Many of you may not know who Chamath is. He is one of the most influential voices in the venture capital in the Silicon Valley, CEO of Social Capital. It started as an idea through his 80-90 initiative, which was very simple. 80% of the features, 90% less cost. And over the last several months, it has taken shape as something he calls software factory. Not one-off announcements, a direction that has been evolving in public. The way he describes it, a system where humans, agents, and AI, they all collaborate to build enterprise software that is reliable, documented, and doesn't shift. The capabilities he listed were specific. Documentation that auto-sync when code changes, the ability to map what legacy code actually does, assembly lines that automate repeating work. And in one of those posts, he makes that specific claim, as I mentioned. One company is using this to replace a $50 million per year SaaS vendor. Now, you can dismiss this as a hype, or you can ask, what if he's right? What if this is a signal or something bigger? Because whether the specific claim holds at scale or not, the underlying shift is already visible. And here is what happened. Ernst & Young, one of the big four, announced a global partnership to deploy software factory across their enterprise clients. Now, you see, when a big four commit at scale, they are not testing an idea. They're betting on a category. And they're signaling to every CIO that this is infrastructure now. And that's a category formation. Here's the thing. You see, we have had automation before. DevOps, offshore delivery, low-code platforms. None of it fundamentally changed the enterprise software economics. They made things faster, cheaper, more efficient, but the unit economics never changed. More work still meant more people. Take DevOps, for example. It eliminated the deployment bottleneck. Deploy in minutes instead of weeks. But to double output, you still needed roughly double the team. The constraint wasn't the deployment. It was how fast the humans could write and validate code. Offshore cut labor costs dramatically, often by half or more, and moved the work to India. But it didn't change the core equation. More features still required more developers. The model remained fundamentally people-driven. Low-code let non-developers build simple applications, true, but complex systems still needed engineers. And now, industry always talks about nonlinear growth, which means decoupling the revenue from the headcount. And they made progress. Revenue might grow 14-15%, while the headcount grow 9-10%, but you still needed thousands of people every year to grow. The constraint was always the same: human coordination. But last year, something different happened. And here is what caught my attention. India's IT services industry, NASSCOM, just reported 6.1% revenue growth with only 2.3% headcount growth. Now, that's one of the widest gaps that we have seen over the decade. And the reason? AI moved from pilots to production. 10 to 12 billion in AI revenue. 2 million people upskilled in AI. For the first time, AI productivity gains are real enough to change how many people you need to deliver the same revenue. And that's when I started asking what changed. And the capital markets were noticing something similar. You see, in 2021, many top SaaS companies traded near 20 times revenue. Some went above 40. And today, the median is closer to 3.5. This is not just a correction. That's repricing. You see, when the code gets cheaper, code becomes less scarce. When software becomes less scarce, value moves somewhere else, which means owning the customer, owning the workflow, delivering outcomes. Now, stick with me here because this is where it gets really interesting. Chamath's announcement is useful. Chamath isn't the proof, though. He is the symptom. You see, here is what's been happening very quietly. Last year in March, Cognition AI launched Devin, not a coding assistant, the fully autonomous AI software engineer, an agent that solved real GitHub problem end to end. A major fintech used it for refactoring, and the efficiency gains massive. 2 months later, Microsoft launched Copilot Workspace, where you delegate entire tasks, not just code snippets. Then the floodgates opened. Replit built an agent that creates complete app from plain English. In roughly 9 months, the revenue went from 10 million to 100 million. 100,000 apps running in production. And this wasn't just startups. Deloitte launched AI factory services. Accenture launched their AI refinery. Even Elon Musk filed a trademark for MacroHeart, a purely AI software company. And then Chamath launched software factories in September. Now, when this many players, from startups to major consultancies, all move in the same direction within 18 months, that's not hype. To me, that's a category formation. Not fully defined yet, but no longer theoretic. But market signals are only half the story, because beneath every valuation chart sits an operating reality. And inside large enterprises, that reality is messy. The average large enterprises is drowning in complexity, close to 1,000 applications, nearly 80% of critical pipelines undocumented, core banking systems that are 30 years old, and 70% of the IT budget spent on maintaining the past. Think about what it means. That means every change becomes risky, every migration becomes expensive, every transformation moves slower than planned. You see, this is the fog I keep talking about. The real shortage inside the enterprise is not software, it is clarity. So here is why traditional approaches fail. MIT tracked 300 enterprise AI initiatives. 80% investigated large language models, 60% evaluated solutions, and 20% piloted projects. Only 5% reached production with measurable impact. Think about that for a moment. The problem is not the interest or the intent. The problem is the execution. And Gartner separately says that the large share of generative AI projects are abandoned after proof of concept. Now, you might think, well, the AI isn't smart enough yet. But that's not the problem. Not because the AI isn't smart enough, but because enterprises can't integrate it in the real systems. They can't govern it. They can't connect it to the workflows. They can't trust it at scale. The intelligence works. The system doesn't. So what does the software factory actually solve? Let me paint a picture for you. You are a bank with a core transaction system built in 80s or 90s in COBOL. Decades of patches layer on top. The original architects retired years ago. Somewhere in that code is a rule that calculates overdraft fees differently for certain accounts. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows where it lives. Nobody knows what breaks if you change it. And you know what happens in reality? You freeze the core and you build API and work around it. But the real logic stays untouched. I have seen it firsthand. Teams spending months to launch a simple feature, not because the writing code is hard, but because understanding the consequences is hard. You want to modernize it. You want to move it to the cloud, launch new product, but the risk is too high and the cost is enormous. Banks have tried solving this for decades in tools and services and consultants. It worked eventually if we had 2 years and $50 million. But here is what changed. A software factory does something fundamentally different. Step one, it maps the entire legacy system, every dependencies, every workflows, every hidden rule. Then step two, it runs that into a living knowledge graph. For the first time, the teams can actually see how the system works. Step three, it converts the repeatable work into assembly lines, migration patterns, testing flows, documentation loops. And step four, it validates every new change against the old system before release, running side by side and detecting regression early. Now, you might think, well, why couldn't we do this before? Well, here is what changed. We've had automation tools for decades, but they couldn't understand what the code actually does. They could execute scripts. They couldn't read the 30-year-old COBOL system and explain the business logic. And generative AI changed that. For the first time, AI can read legacy code, understand the dependencies, and explain what's actually happening. It can map systems we thought were unmappable. And this is what shifts the economics. AI is not just writing code faster, it is reducing the cost of understanding, changing and validating software. And that is a real breakthrough. Execution gets cheaper and judgment becomes more valuable. And the best part, this is not rip and replace. You plug in Git, Jira, and CI/CD pipelines. Many large firms now route through the partners like E&Y product development life cycles. You modernize it in parallel, validate side by side, reduce risk step by step, and you still own what you build. JPMorgan built Coin, contract intelligence. Work once consumed massive manual review time was compressed dramatically. An estimated 360,000 human hours saved annually. Think about what it means. And that is the fog removal at enterprise scale. But here is the bigger point. Software factories make legacy system legible. They make modernization safer and they turn the software production into factory process for the very first time. But here is what most people miss. Boston Consulting Group found that in transformation like this, only about 10% of the value comes from algorithm itself. 20% comes from technology and data, but 70% comes from people and process, change management, governance, training, workflow design. Think about what it means. You can buy the model, you can license the tools, but you still need to redesign how the organization works. And that's where the most initiatives stall, because the leaders delegate instead of lead. Teams run too many disconnected pilots. Functions optimize locally instead of changing the system-wide. McKinsey has reportedly shown that a small minority of companies capture meaningful financial impact from AI at scale. The bottleneck isn't intelligence, it is the integration. And there are three constraints no software factory can fully remove. First, change management. People must trust new workflow before they adopt them. Second, data quality. 30 years of fragmented, inconsistent enterprise data does not magically fix itself. A factory can expose the mess, but it can't erase overnight. And third, accountability. Where an AI agent makes the wrong decision, question is, who owns it? In the Fortune 500 companies, biggest enemy is not coding, it's permission. Legal permission, operational permission, political permission. And here is the security reality. Many enterprises still want AI system running in private or controlled environments, not because public cloud cannot work, but because trust matters more than novelty. And software factories only scale where enterprise trust already exists. Let me show you what happens when the companies skip the human layer. In 2025, Australia's largest bank, Commonwealth Bank, replaced customer service roles with an AI voice bot. Within weeks, call volumes increased, the system struggled with nuances, complex queries, and edge cases, and the bank had to reverse course. Think about that for a moment. The technology looked efficient. The operating model was not. And this is the pattern that we are going to see again and again. Companies cut too fast. Workflows break, they rehire, but not the same roles. They hire orchestrators, validators, people who supervise machine output. But here is what's really changing. You see, software factories remove the fog. They make legacy systems legible. They reduce the cost of mechanical execution. But they do not eliminate constraints. They relocate them. From coding to validation, from building to governing, from writing to verifying. This does not mean fewer engineers. It means different kind of work. Someone still has to design the system, review the output, make the architectural decisions. You see, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that 17% job growth for software engineers alone till 2033. So factories automate tasks for sure, but not judgment. But now here is where the pressure hits the offshore IT services firms. Indian IT services industry just crossed $315 billion. Revenue is rising. Hiring has slowed sharply. Some major firms are already seeing the net headcount decline. The decoupling has begun. Look, I know how it sounds. I just told you engineering jobs are growing. And now I'm showing you India's headcount is declining. So which is it? Both at the same point. Think about what's growing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects 17% growth for software engineers. They are not just counting routine coders. They're counting validators, architects, engineers who can direct AI. What's shrinking? The offshore model for routine coding. That's the work took 20 people now takes 12. And Indian firms, they are not dying, they're adopting. NASSCOM, 2 million engineers trained in AI delivery. They're moving from execution to validation. And this is what industrialization does. It doesn't eliminate the profession. It eliminates the routine work and forces everyone to do higher value work. So here is my take. AI is not killing software. It is industrializing it. And whenever production gets industrialized, value shifts. And the winner will not be the fastest builders. They will be the most trusted validators. I have written more about it on my Substack. Check the link in the description below if you want to dive deeper. I'm Subrata Kar, and this is The Forge POV. If this has helped you to think differently, then subscribe. Your support helps me to keep doing this kind of independent research. And you know someone in the IT or enterprise tech trying to make sense of the shift, share it with them. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.